The birth of American politics, how it all began. Think American politics is messy now? Well, guess what? It's been a fight since day one. The founding fathers may have dreamed of unity, but the ink on the Constitution was barely dry before they started tearing each other apart. And at the center of it all, two men with completely different visions for America's future, Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson. One believed in power and industry. The other, in freedom and simplicity. One saw government as the key to greatness. The other feared it could destroy democracy. These weren't just casual disagreements, they shaped the entire course of American history. Their battle didn't just create the first political parties, it set the stage for the divisions we still see today. So, how did it all begin? Let's dive in. Hamilton's vision of America. At first, it looked like everything was going great. George Washington was elected without a single opponent. The new government was up and running. And for a brief moment, it seemed like everyone was on the same page. That didn't last long, because almost immediately, a major question emerged: what kind of country was America supposed to be? Some believed America should stay a loose collection of independent states, focused on small farming communities and local control. Alexander Hamilton disagreed. Hamilton wasn't a fan of small farms or weak state governments. He saw the future of America in a powerful central government, driving industry, trade, and national growth. As Washington's right-hand man and the first Secretary of the Treasury, Hamilton envisioned America as a global economic powerhouse. He even believed national debt could be a good thing, uniting the country and stabilizing the economy. But here's where things got tricky. Hamilton didn't think just anyone should be in charge. He believed the wealthy and educated should hold the reins of power. His Federalist Party pushed for a strong federal government, a structured economy, and close ties with Britain. But not everyone agreed. Enter Thomas Jefferson, who had a completely different vision for America, leading to one of the most defining political battles in US history. Jefferson's vision of America. For every vision of the future, there's always a competing idea. And if Hamilton saw America as an industrial powerhouse, Thomas Jefferson saw something entirely different. Jefferson and his allies, initially known as anti-federalists, strongly opposed Hamilton's vision of centralized power and industrialization. Instead, they imagined an agrarian America, where independent farmers worked their own land, free from debt, government control, and the influence of banks and corporations. For Jefferson, the ideal citizen was the self-sufficient farmer, not the factory worker or merchant. He believed that a strong central government and concentrated economic power posed a greater threat to liberty than mob rule. And he trusted the common man over the elites, while Hamilton admired Britain's strong banking system and global trade. Jefferson was firmly aligned with France. Having spent years in Paris, Jefferson embraced the revolutionary ideals of liberty and equality, especially after witnessing the French Revolution and its bold actions against aristocracy. To Jefferson and his followers, France symbolized resistance to tyranny, while Britain represented the type of elite-controlled government they had fought to escape. By the time John Adams became president, Jefferson's faction had evolved into the Democratic Republicans, still advocating for a decentralized, agrarian republic that stood in stark contrast to Hamilton's vision of an industrialized empire. The battle over democracy and free speech. At the heart of early American politics was a key question: how democratic should the new nation be? And how much free speech was too much? Jefferson and his allies championed a democracy where ordinary citizens had a voice and freedom of speech was protected. They supported groups like the Democratic Republican Societies, which opposed federal authority, believing that government censorship was the real threat to liberty. The Federalists disagreed, fearing that too much free speech, especially from the masses, could lead to chaos. citing the French Revolution as proof. While Jefferson and his allies initially supported the revolution, its violent turn in 1793 confirmed the Federalist fears that too much power in the hands of the people could spiral into mob rule. It's important to note, though, that while Republicans positioned themselves as defenders of democracy, many, including Jefferson, were also slaveholders, profiting from a system that denied liberty to millions. Hamilton's five-point plan. If Washington was the steady hand guiding the country, Hamilton was the one actually writing the playbook. And Hamilton, being Hamilton, didn't just throw out a few ideas, he crafted an ambitious and controversial five-point plan that would shape the American economy for generations. Assumption of state debts. After the Revolution, the U.S. was in deep debt, both nationally and at the state level. Hamilton proposed that the federal government take on all state debts to show the world we were financially responsible. Not everyone liked this idea, especially states like Virginia, who'd already paid off their debt. But Hamilton struck a deal. He agreed to move the capital to Washington, D.C., which convinced those states to go along with it. Even back then, politics was about negotiation. Create a national debt. Now, you might be thinking, why would Hamilton want to create more debt? Well, he believed debt could be a good thing if the right people were invested in it. So, instead of paying everything off, he issued new government bonds. Wealthy Americans would buy them, and in return, they'd have a vested interest in making sure the U.S. economy thrived. The idea? Money equals power. Establishment of a national bank. Hamilton wanted a central bank to control the country's finances, regulate credit, and provide a stable currency. Jefferson and his followers weren't fans, they saw it as too much central control. But Hamilton argued that without it, the country couldn't function properly. Washington sided with Hamilton, and the Bank of the United States was born. Excise taxes. One of the most controversial parts of Hamilton's plan was the whiskey tax. It was a blow to small farmers who used whiskey to make extra money. This led to the Whiskey Rebellion in 1794, where farmers took up arms. Washington didn't hesitate. He sent in troops to put down the rebellion and send a clear message: the government's authority was not up for debate. Protect American industry. Hamilton didn't want America to stay an agricultural nation forever. He proposed tariffs on foreign goods to encourage Americans to buy homegrown products and stimulate local manufacturing. Southern states, who relied on trading raw materials, didn't like this idea. But Hamilton wasn't about to let that stop him. So, while Hamilton may have made plenty of enemies in his time, there's no denying this, the United States today looks a lot more like the country he envisioned than the one Jefferson wanted. The growing divide between Federalists and Republicans. In 1793, Citizen Genet, a French diplomat, sparked tensions by recruiting Americans to attack British ships. Britain responded by kidnapping American sailors to serve in their navy, which really angered the US. To resolve the crisis, Washington sent John Jay to Britain, resulting in the Jay Treaty of 1794. The treaty improved trade relations with Britain but didn't address impressment or shipping rights, which left many Americans frustrated. Instead of confronting these issues, Washington chose to pass them on to future presidents, setting a precedent for avoiding tough foreign policy problems. By the end of his presidency, George Washington was pretty fed up with politics. His ideal of a united country had already started to unravel. In his farewell address, he warned against political parties, saying they could stir up false alarms and even lead to riot and insurrection. He feared they'd open the door to foreign influence and corruption. Sadly, Washington's dream of a unified America didn't last long. When John Adams became president, the nation was already split into two, the Federalists, who wanted a strong central government and closer ties with Britain. And the Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson, who favored states' rights and supported revolutionary France. The divide was real, and it set the stage for years of political conflict. John Adams's presidency. In 1796, John Adams became president, but thanks to the flawed electoral college. His political opposite, Thomas Jefferson, became vice president. You've got a Federalist president and a Democratic Republican VP. Talk about a mess. This obviously wasn't going to work long term. So changes had to be made. But not until after another election and even more mistakes. Meanwhile, Adams was dealing with foreign problems, like the XYZ affair, where French diplomats tried to bribe the US. In response, he passed the Alien and Sedition Acts, which ended up restricting free speech and deporting foreigners. One congressman, Matthew Lyon, was even jailed for criticizing Adams, only to get re-elected while in prison. Eventually, Jefferson let the act expire, but it showed just how unstable the young US government was. The battles over political power, states' rights, and free speech were far from over. So, did the Founding Fathers get it right? Or are we still dealing with their mistakes? Let me know what you think.